Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Inside Man United and happy 2024. How was everyone's New Year's Eve? I'm sure there's a few heads on people this morning after last night's festivities. So I hope everyone's not feeling too bad and having a nice cup of coffee and a bit of brekkie this morning while we catch up on the United news. 2023, a bit of a mixed bag for United fans in general. It certainly helped Ten Hag cement his position as a manager people were going to have some faith in. The second half of the 22-23 season, obviously with the beginning being quite weak, we really came into our own and had an excellent spell, and Ten Hag really seemed to kind of cement his place as a manager that people wanted to get behind. And as such, I think last season was kind of considered a bit of a success, a trophy, a final, third place finish, and some decent football being played and results certainly coming our way. However, the end of 2023 has not really continued on in the same fashion. It's been a very weak start to the season with, I think, 14 losses now across all competitions and all games, with, I think, 9, maybe 10 in the league alone, which is quite an appalling record. However, my faith is still with the bald man in the dugout, and I think there's a lot that needs to be put in place. We've seen Arsenal now losing 2 in a row, West Ham putting some results together as well, and established teams starting to kind of falter a little bit compared to where they had been. So this is kind of par for the course, and while the results are unacceptable, I think there are certain things that are just outside of Ten Hag's control at the moment, and I understand some of the things that have been put towards him. Decision making, he's supposed to be coaching players better, but I mean, we look at Guardiola, and you look at what he does when players aren't able to do what he wants them to do. They're gone. Whether it's goalkeepers, fullbacks, centre halves, midfielders, forward players, it doesn't matter. If you're not doing what he needs you to do, doing it well and doing it consistently, you're out of the team and you're replaced. So Guardiola's made plenty of bad purchases, particularly across the backline. The guy's bought about 25 million defenders since he's been there, until he's been able to settle on a solid bag. Aymeric Laporte, a Spanish international, 29 years of age, one of the best defenders in the league, perhaps the world, gone. And replaced by Varane. This is not something United do. These are not things that Ten Hag gets to enjoy. Now, what he does have to take a lot of responsibility for why things have gone wrong. My faith is still fully behind him. I think once we've got a proper board in place, transfer strategy and things like that, I think once we get a good foundation in place for Ten Hag, the results of the club and the players are going to improve dramatically. I hope, but remains to be seen. But without further ado, we've got some news to kick off the 2024 year, the remainder of the season. So these are the headlines for today. Man United safe to spend several $100 million on new players after Jim Ratcliffe deal. Raphael Varane may be forced to take a pay cut, with United facing a David De Gea repeat. United fans react to Amad Diallo display versus Forest, and is this bad news for Anthony? And Erik Ten Hag delivers his own verdict on Amad Diallo during the game against Forest. United are now getting very protective over Dan Gore, as a lot of interest growing in Europe in United playmaker. And United Swedish Iceman Victor Lindelof set to have his contract extended by 1 year. All that coming up. So first up, we've got the Daily Express. Lewis Winter. United safe to spend hundreds of millions on new players after Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal. So let's kind of look into the details here. There's the man himself. So apparently, with certain types of rules that have been put in place as to the percentage and ratio of what you can spend based on losses, profits, but also you can increase the amount that you spend on players if there is injection of capital from the owners of the club, which of course the Glazers have not done because they're filthy, greedy rat bastards. So yeah, as we see here, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's investment into the club, it's claimed the British billionaire arrival will substantially increase the Red Devils' transfer kitty heading into the summer window. and they'd be free to splash the cash without breaching any financial rules. How so, Rowan, you might ask? Well, let's get into it. Ratcliffe's purchase of 25% was finally agreed on Christmas Eve, ho, 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 and it brought to an end a long-running transfer saga, which started in November 2022. So Sir Dave Brailsford, many people will have noticed him in the crowd during the Forest game. He will be on the board at United, and he's already been spotted in the crowd. United fans have been keen to discover what Ineos's arrival will mean for the transfer budget. So let's go in and have a quick look at this. So there's the man himself there on the right-hand side. United just filled with bold men at the moment. So a report from the Times claims it's good news. Ratcliffe's arrival will enable United to splash the cash without going against FFP. So the PSR rules, the Premier League's kind of profit and sustainability board, the PSR rules restrict clubs to £15 million of allowable losses over 3 years. So a further 90 million of losses would be permitted if the owners inject new equity into the club. So that's why United have been unable to spend that kind of money. Because the Glazers were not willing to inject additional capital, but it's been claimed that the Ratcliffe deal will prevent that from happening in the future. So injecting a further 90 million would grant the new United hierarchy the option of spending several hundred million more on new players. That will certainly be music to Erik Ten Hag's ears. Now, this doesn't change the fact that we could have spent 100 million on Harry Kane, but didn't, and we splurged money on Anthony. And I've read articles, and this has been on previous news before that we've done, where United scouts, it's documented, only valued Anthony at around 25 to 30 million, and then the price skyrocketed. I don't see how they justified paying 100 million for a player they thought was 25 million. It does not make sense. At all. There's no reality in which a 25 million pound player should have. It was 100 million euro. It was 84 million pounds, so nearly 100 million euro. So it doesn't excuse why we have been spending that kind of money on multiple players and it hasn't worked out. So we can't just blame the Glazers' lack of investment for really poor spending of the money that has been spent. So this isn't going to just erase United's troubles, because the money that we have spent has been spent badly. So Ten Hag is looking forward to working with new investors and says the feeling is mutual. They want to work with me. I want to work with them, and we will have the conversations, the meetings we will see. Now, again, it's nice to hear, but of course they're going to tell him that they're looking forward to working with him. You can't tell a manager that he's no longer going to be required once things are finalized, and then he just makes shit of your season and you lose money because you don't qualify for the top four. You got to keep everyone happy, positive, and moving in the right direction, and then you can put a bullet in the back of their head when the time is right. So I don't necessarily think this means Ten Hag is safe. Far from it. With our worst season in almost 100 years, no one can conceivably think that this man right here is not going to be putting an ice pick to the back of Ten Hag's head, Goodfellas style. So yeah, we'll see what happens there, but it'll be interesting to see how United spend the money. I'm more concerned with how it's spent as opposed to how much we have to spend, but we'll see. So United facing De Gea repeat with 340k a week star set for huge pay cut. So it's been reported United will not extend Raphael Varane's contract at the end of this season. His contract is up. Many reports said that he had a 5-year contract when joining United. But Raphael Varane had a 4-year deal with the option to extend for another year. It seems that United are not keen on extending by a year, given his injury record and his form being quite up and down. I mean, over the 4 years, can United fans genuinely say that Varane has been a successful signing? No. His first couple of seasons were poor beside Harry Maguire. He obviously played very well with Lisandro Martinez, and his form this year hasn't been great without Lisandro Martinez there. And he's been paid a lot of money, and he just hasn't been consistent enough to warrant 300 grand plus per week. It's just not right. So United do actually want to keep him at the club. They just don't want to keep him at the club for 350 grand a week. So they do want to try and table a contract to him. They do want to keep him, but they want to lower the amount of money that he'll be on. It's very similar to what United tried to do with David De Gea as his contract was coming to a close. But they kind of pricked him around because I think they had offered him a contract, and then when he was going to sign it, they took it off the table and reduced it again. So it's not quite the same thing. I think the way United dealt with that was quite unscrupulous and unethical, if I'm being completely honest. But it says here, United reportedly willing to offer Varane a new contract, but he'd have to cut his wages. David De Gea found himself in a similar situation. Yes, of course, we know that. The Daily Mail claim that United are set to make decisions on a number of players, including Varane, with his contract up at the end of the season. The 30-year-old has recently returned to the first team. That was an odd one. No one's really gotten to the bottom of why Ten Hag had him out when he was fit. So yeah, maybe he's been told, get that guy in the team because we want him to actually extend his contract for a lower amount. So he needs to feel loved. But God knows, we can only speculate, but speculating is fun. Concerns have been raised over the length of the contract after the club initially reported that he had penned a deal until 2025. If the clause was triggered, United would be contracted to pay Varane at his current salary for another year, which they clearly don't want to do. So what do you think? Should we offer him a new contract? Do you want to keep De Gea or do you want to keep Varane at the club? Put your thoughts in the comments. Get involved and let me know what you think. Would you keep Varane? I ran a poll a while back on Twitter. If you could get 40 million for Varane from Saudi in the summer, just say he signs a new contract, we decide to sell him. Would you take 40 million for an aging Varane, for an injured aging Varane? I would, to be honest. He's a great player, but no point having a great player when they're not fit. We've had too much of that at the club between Tuanzebe and Bailly, Phil Jones. We've had a lot of very talented players that just can't play. And that is about as useful as a hole in the head. So, yeah, United trying to get Varane onto a new contract. Definitely seem like they want to keep him, but whether they can is another thing. So Murtaugh discussed Varane, Casemiro, Sancho, Anthony Martial with the Saudi Pro League clubs, but failed to secure a deal for any of the players. And Ten Hag admitted the talks are ongoing with a number of players. We talk with the players and, of course, with their agents. So this is an internal process between us, the club and the players, and I can't debate this. Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Mejbri expected to be given 1-year extensions. There was also news, I said it in the last episode, Mejbri is being offered on loan, which is very disappointing. I'd love to see Mejbri getting more minutes. I think he's definitely a Manchester United caliber player, certainly an attitude, and I think there's definitely ability there. So it'd be a shame to see him go. So what do you think? Would you sell Varane? Would you keep him? Do you think it's worth keeping him on, but at a lower rate of pay? It's a tough one to kind of get your head around, but let's see what happens. United fans react to Diallo display against Forest. I was delighted to see Diallo come on and finally get some league minutes for United. And I'm sick of seeing him going out on loan. He's been doing well. However, doing well in League One or the Championship is a very different deal than doing well in the Premiership and doing well for Manchester United. So, there are levels to this. But Diallo, there was a lot of money paid for him. Now, this is obviously during a very irresponsible period of United transfer activity. So just because we paid a lot for him doesn't mean he's necessarily worth that amount. But yeah, Amad Diallo is a player that I think a lot of people really do want to see work out. And given the curse that there is on the United right-hand side, whether it's Anthony not doing well enough at all with his own legal battles hanging over him. Greenwood, obviously, that's been done to death. Jadon Sancho, disciplinary issues. Pellistri doesn't look like Ten Hag has the best impression of him at the moment, given the lack of minutes. And we can see that if you are good enough, you get minutes, whether it's Manu, Garnacho, and other players like that, Hoyland. Ten Hag is not afraid of youth. So age is certainly not the issue here. It's clearly about ability, but Diallo just needs to be brought in, I think, given a chance. And a lot of United fans were happy to see Diallo and thought he did a lot better than what Anthony was offering on that side. But the horrible display by Anthony was ended as he was withdrawn through injury in the second half, allowing Amad Diallo to make his comeback appearance. This led to a display which fans have been raving about in the aftermath. I think that's a little bit of hyperbolic journalism there. I don't think anyone was raving about it. Great picture of Diallo flying there. Fans praised Diallo. He made a 35-minute cameo and did seem to impress. Amad Diallo is the only positive I'm picking today. Came in and immediately became a threat off the right. Amad showing in his small cameo against Forest that he is better than Anthony. Now, we've seen that it looks like Garnacho is going to be deployed out in the right with Rashford kept on the left. There's been a lot of experimentation with different players in different positions, and it looks like Garnacho. Ten Hag has said that Garnacho did very well on the right hand side, and I think he preferred to see Rashford on the left. So this is going to create problems for the likes of Diallo getting back in the team, Anthony getting back in the team. Where is Mason Mount going to play? Will he occupy that deeper lying midfield role that Eriksen was playing? I mean, Eriksen was playing deeper than Manu yesterday, if anyone was watching. Obviously, the two centre halves in the middle with Shaw and Bissaka, or Dalot and Bissaka occupying almost the midfield line as a very, very advanced fullback, with Manu kind of coming back and playing, as Eriksen kind of coming back and almost playing as a third centre half, which you would have thought would have been Manu. Manu obviously replaced with McTominay, and McTominay just forgetting how to be a box-to-box midfielder. He just wants to get forward. And there was a huge gap, and that's when Forest got their second goal. Like, they sauntered onto the ball. There wasn't a player within 10 yards of the guy on the edge of your penalty area. I mean, it was unforgivable stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Mount will be able to kind of help Manu in that area. Amrabat obviously is another option there, but again, he's failing to impress. So Amad looked more dangerous in 30 minutes than Anthony in the has at any time this season. And a lot of people wanting Diallo to come in place of Anthony. What do you guys think? Would you have Diallo come in instead of Anthony? I think it's safe to say everyone just does not want to see Anthony continue playing for Manchester United. He's just not good enough. He doesn't have the speed. He doesn't have the trickery. He's got great work rate off the ball. The attitude is there. I think mentality-wise, Anthony is definitely a United player, mentality-wise. The same way Brandon Williams was under Herrera. These kind of players that they definitely have the mentality, they just don't have the ability. Now, that might be a little bit unfair on Williams and Herrera, and they're certainly better players than Anthony has ever been. But you know, those kind of players where like they've got all the best will in the world, but if you just can't get up to that kind of elite European standard, well, then there just can't be a place for you in the first 11. But I think Diallo, there's definitely a player there. So what do you guys think? Should Diallo be coming in and giving competition to Garnacho on that right-hand side? Thoughts in the comment section, please. So Ten Hag had his own things to say about Diallo's performance there. So yes, yet another Manchester United defeat. Yes, so it's not been good reading for United fans or employees the last while. So Ten Hag praises Man United talent Diallo. He went on to say he had a really good performance in the second half. They were in the match. I thought Amad Diallo came in really good. Garnacho played a very good game, I think, said Ten Hag. And 36 minutes, he'd one key pass, one shot on target, and one tackle and 17 accurate passes. It's not, again, they say here, not mind-blowing stuff. But it is an impact. You know, he's a young guy coming into a team he's not used to playing in. A lot of pressure on him. In a team that wasn't playing well, it's hard to do much as a forward player when the team around you isn't able to run onto passes, isn't supporting you for 1-2s. You're not getting support. Your runners aren't doing their job. They're not going in the right direction. It's a symbiotic relationship when you're an attacking player, unless you're like Messi or Ronaldo, where you can just run the length of the pitch on your own and bang it in the back of the net. You do need a bit of a supporting cast. So United playmaker Dan Gore, there's the little baby face man there. A lot of hype around this kid, Dan Gore. I don't know how many United fans pay much attention to the youth team. I certainly do. I'm always interested to see what's coming through United's academy following what kind of talent is coming through in which positions, who can put pressure on those more senior players. And United it's not like a City team where you're so successful and littered with stars that you can't really give youth a chance because you just basically don't really need to. United are in a position now where there is no harm just bringing in some young lads, either to increase their value for resale, get them in the shop window, or maybe they are good enough. Maybe they can displace some of those underperforming players. And that's certainly what I would like to see. It doesn't hurt between now and the end of the season. If we don't do much in January, if top four isn't on, which I don't think it is. I mean, if all the other teams around us, win their games in hand, United are 9 points off fourth. I mean, this season is a write-off in terms of silverware and getting into Europe, in my opinion, unless we go on a remarkable run that I just don't think we're capable of. But stranger things have happened. United reportedly made their stance very clear on what the future holds for talented playmaker Dan Gore in January, with a growing list of clubs chasing his signature, namely Borussia Dortmund. And there's few better places in the world for players to go and increase their value and get the opportunity to showcase what they can do. We've just seen it with a bunch of British-based players that have gone over there to go on and do bigger and better things, like Jadon Sancho, Jude Bellingham, and of course Erling Haaland when he went there for a couple of seasons from Salzburg. So yeah, sorry, let me just get my mic a little bit over here. Fantastic. There we go. So meanwhile, it's been revealed in a separate report on Saturday that several clubs are tracking Gore. So again, Dortmund thought to be high up on the list. However, Football Insider adds that senior figures at Old Trafford don't see Gore's sale as the fix to their FFP issues and are willing to reject all bids that arrive next month. He's making a big impression in training. It's not just that they don't think they can get enough for him. They actually think they've got a player on their hands here. So the former Burnley youth star said to have made a big impression on the coaching staff at Carrington and was handed a Premier League debut late in the Boxing Day comeback win over Aston Villa. He was on the bench again against Forest. So, he's starting to warm the bench. He's starting to kind of hang around these senior players, and opportunities will come his way. It appears that Ten Hag is ready to lean on the club's younger players even more in the coming months. Absolutely delighted to see that. I really, really, really do want to see our young lads being given a chance, because you need to encourage the youth team that if you play well enough, there are chances there. And so bad have United senior players been that, why not show these kids that, okay, our big boys aren't doing it. Maybe you can. Here's your opportunity. Put the badge on and see what you can do. So yeah, watch this space. This young lad Dan Gore, I think there's a real player here for United fans to get excited about, and I hope we see a little bit more of him over the coming weeks and months. And finally, United extend Lindelof's contract until 2025 as Ten Hag favourite sees 1-year option activated. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't be calling Mr. Lindelof a Ten Hag favourite. He's been there more so because Maguire wasn't playing well. Varane is out injured. Martinez is out injured. Lindelof has been there because he's available. But I don't think he's been doing anything especially amazing to be a Ten Hag favourite. However, the article does go on to say that the contract is going to be extended till 2025. So, they're automatically going to activate that 1-year extension. It's basically just to keep his value. They don't want him going for free. So yeah, if they don't extend it, he can start talking to clubs in January, and then, maybe because he will get first team ball elsewhere. I think it's safe to say that once United do their business, either in January or the summer, Lindelof ain't going to be in United starting 11. That is an absolute cast iron fact. So Lindelof has to ask himself, am I going to get more money elsewhere? Or am I happy to take less money to be a starter lower down the league or in a tier 2 league, go back to Portugal, maybe go to Spain and kind of reinvent myself elsewhere? It's a tough call. I've struggled with injury problems at the heart of their defense and feel they've had to rely on the services of a 35-year-old Johnny Evans. Lindelof has appeared more than any other United centre-half this term. He's played 18 times in all competitions. And I don't know what's next for this guy. He's 29 now. He should be at the peak years of playing, but I think once United get the players in they need, but it is a squad game. You look at all the other top teams, there is 7 or 8 potential first team players going for 3-4 positions. It remains to be seen, but what do you think? Would you like to see Lindelof extend? Is he a good option to have on the bench? Is he someone that we should have to give our more senior players a rest? Is he a reliable enough option to play 20, 25 games a season and, play that John O'Shea role of someone who can play out wide if needs to, play through the middle, give more senior players a rest when it's required? There's a huge amount of games during the season. So is Lindelof good enough to kind of carry that kind of the Robin to Batman kind of mantle? Thoughts in the comments. That's pretty much it for today's news. So what are your thoughts on the news? Do we need to wait till summer so we can spend all these millions, or are we getting pretty desperate and need to start spending money in January? My thoughts are we cannot be waiting until until the summer to bring in some new recruits. I think it's desperately important that we bring in some better defensive players in January, whether it's Jean-Claire Todibo, it looks like Goncalo Inacio and Antonio Silva, and other defensive-minded players will not be allowed to leave by their respective clubs. However, it does seem that Jean-Claire Todibo is a more likely option given the fact that Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns Nice. However, the player and the agent, it needs to make sense for them. It's not just like a piece of furniture you can move from one house to the other. it has to make sense for the player involved, and I certainly hope that we bring him in, because we need someone there, and potentially we need to start bringing in midfielders, because the lack of defensive awareness and understanding from our midfielders at that club is poor. The amount of times we have allowed teams free access to the ball on the edge of our box, and it's happened all season. Happened against Forest, it happened against Spurs, it happened against Arsenal. It's happened in multiple games. The same type of goal scored in the same way with the same space. And that is down to our centre halves and our midfielders just not being aware, not communicating, and we need to fix that. And this is where I think people need to kind of take it easy on Ten Hag. There's only so much coaching you should be expected to do with players. When you're at this level, there is a certain level of intelligence and positional awareness and ability that a manager should be able to take for granted that his players possess. Yes, you can make players better, train them on, but your job as a manager is to buy well, obviously train well, but it's to put together a team that can play a certain way. And there are certain things happening on that pitch which I know for a fact are not Ten Hag's fault. These are individual errors, brain farts by players that are just the kind of players that will get you into trouble during games. So that's why my faith is still fully behind Ten Hag. I think when he's got the right players playing the right way, he can put together a very, very good 11. So I'm certainly going to be willing to extend him that patience. Just whether or not Sir Jim Ratcliffe does is another matter altogether. But please, thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you were thinking about today's news articles. Love to hear from you guys and interact. So any thoughts, please throw it into the comments. As always, thank you very, very much for joining me. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit that notification button, and I'll see you on the next one.